the longer the retirement, the lower that initial percentage rate goes. So it can actually go below 4% for longer retirements. I would say generally it doesn't go below about 3.5%, but in any event, we'll assume a 30-year retirement. So if on $1 million portfolio, you could spend $40,000. But here's the key point. After you use the 4% to get your first year of spending, you throw it out. You don't use the 4% anymore. It's the only time it's used. It's kind of ironic that we call it the 4% rule, and you only use it on day one of retirement, and then you never use that percentage again. Maybe we should come up with a different name. In any event, what do you do after that? Well, going back to question 2 from David, you adjust your spending by the rate of inflation as measured by CPI. Now, of course, you may say, well, wait a minute, Rob. My spending might not match that model exactly. Yeah, this is just a model. All models are wrong. That's what they like to say about economic models. Every last one of them is just flat out wrong. Some of them just happen to be useful. And I think the 4% rule can be useful as a way of thinking about all of this. But the important point is it adjusts your spending by the rate of inflation. So now let's go back to a portfolio that generates a 6% yield. There's absolutely no portfolio that today generates a yield of 6% that guarantees you that the underlying value of the assets that are generating that 6% yield will increase by the rate of inflation. And that's the real problem. You might have a portfolio that pays a 6% yield today, but what if it goes down in value? Even if the amount of the yield kind of stays the same, it's 6% on a much lower value of capital. That's the problem. A portfolio that generates a 6% yield, there's no guarantee that it's going to increase your actual dollars that get sent to you in the form of interest and dividends are going to go up each year by the rate of inflation. Now, 6% is a lot more than 4%, so at least for a time you might shrug your shoulders and say, yeah, Rob, I don't really care. I'm getting 6% instead of 4%. But over a 30-year retirement, that can make a huge difference. The other concern I have is that when I start to see portfolios or investments that pay significantly more yield than what the market as a whole is paying, and you think S&P 500 or total U.S. market is paying about, 1.2% yield, for example. Now you could get into REITs, you could get into high yield debt, so there are other things that you could do to generate higher yield. But those sorts of portfolios over the long term, I would argue, generally don't have the same total return that just a straight market portfolio does. They tend to underperform in the long term, and it's really total return that's going to drive the success or failure of a retirement plan, not just the yield.